Hi, I'm Josh, your American English guide, and this is English Hacks Pronunciation, where I help you to sound more like a native, if you want, and to understand natural American speech better. In the previous lesson, we talked a lot about the basics of English rhythm on the board here, and we particularly compared stress time, which English is, to syllable timed, which is like Spanish or Hindi, for example. Now, if you have not seen that first big rhythm lesson, I strongly recommend that you start there because everything in this lesson is going to be based on an understanding of that information. Now, for today's lesson, we are going to be still focusing on the rhythm itself. Of course, we have to look at the stress because that's part of English rhythm, but we're not really concerned with what words are stressed or why they're stressed. It's more just about how the stress is working in the flow of the sentence and how that creates the rhythm in English. Remember, the biggest point here is that in a stress-timed language like English, the stressed syllables are going to be louder and longer, also higher in pitch, where the unstressed syllables are not going to be normal, they're actually going to be even shorter and quieter. The sentences that we're going to look at we saw in the linking practice lesson. So if you haven't seen that, you can go check that out too. There will be a link in the description, but we are not focused on the linking here. And remember, this isn't just for your mouth, this is also for your ears. As we go through things, I want you to try to focus on actually hearing the rhythm and not just trying to reproduce it. So our first example here is the sentence, "It's about time." Now, the stress syllables are "bout" and the word "time." So, focusing on the rhythm, this tells us that these two syllables need to be loud and long, where "it's" and the in "about" are going to be very, very small and quiet. If I just say this normally, "It's about time." It's a, right? It's almost like there's nothing there. It's super, super quiet. It's a. And you actually don't even have to say the "I" at the start of "it's" in this case if we're not clearly enunciating. It's more like it's about time, right? And we hear that "bout" and then "time." Time is really the big stress here. It's about time. It's about time. So what you do not want to do here is say, "It's about time. It's about time." That's more even. It's more flat. We don't want that. If I were to clearly enunciate, we are going to hear a bit more of "it's" and but relatively we still need to make sure that these two syllables are shorter and quieter compared to the other syllables in the sentence. So if I very clearly enunciate, "It's about time. It's about time." So you'll still notice it doesn't matter how clearly or how loudly I say those unstressed syllables, the stressed syllables need to be even louder and even longer in comparison. That's one of the keys to maintaining English rhythm. What about if we say, "Do you want to learn English? Do you want to learn English?" Now in this sentence, it's a bit longer, it's a question, and we see that at the very beginning, right, do you, and then want, do you want, do you want? So those first two syllables, those first two words are super short, super quiet, and they can even be reduced. We know do often reduces to duh, not always, but often if it's a helping verb, and you often reduces to yeah. And English rhythm is one reason why that happens. Do you want? Do you want? What's after that? We have to. Now we know that want and to is commonly pronounced wanna. Do you wanna? Do you wanna? Now what happens to the rhythm if I actually do separate those and I say want to? Let's say I still reduce to ta, because it most likely will be that way anyway. But we keep those T's. Do you want to learn English? 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 There's a little bit of shift, a very subtle little difference in the flow and in the rhythm because we're keeping the T. Do you wanna? Do you wanna? Do you want to? Do you want to? So this is important because it's completely possible to say want to or even want to. It might come out that way, especially if for some reason you're speaking very slowly, you're emphasizing, you're trying to clarify what you just said by repeating it. These things can happen, but normally it's going to be wanna. But this is again part of the dynamic range and flow of American English pronunciation, and it also has an effect on the rhythm depending on what's going on. After to, we have learn, which is stressed. So want and learn are stressed. They're verbs, right? Do you want to learn? Do you want to learn? So notice that even if we keep that T on to, do you want to learn? Do you want to learn? It's still it's really small. Okay, so with or without the T, that needs to be super small, where want and learn are going to stand out more, right? Do you want to learn? Do you want to learn? And then the word English. Now, English is 2 syllables. Stress on the first syllable. English, English. Of course, we are going to be pulled back up at the end because it's a yes or no question. Do you want to learn English? Do you want to learn English? We're not worried too much about that right now, but ing needs to be louder and longer than the lish. English, 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 English. And then we have learn, right? Learn English, learning, learning. They're both pretty high, right? Because learn is stressed, the ing is stressed. Do you want to learn English? Do you want to learn English? Not, do you want to learn English? Do you want to learn English? It's more flat, it's more even. We don't want that. Our next sentence is, we're waiting for you to leave. We're waiting for you to leave. We're waiting. If I really clearly enunciate, it kind of flattens out a little bit, but the wait needs to be longer. Under normal speed, with a little bit of a lazy pronunciation, that we're is really going to shrink down. We're going to barely hit the R sound. We're, instead of we're wait, we're waiting, we're way. And then of course, we're going to flap D on the T, waiting. But the point is that that second syllable in waiting is not stressed. So we hear it even just in the word waiting, okay? It's not waiting, it's waiting. After that, we have for. The full pronunciation is with an or, right? An R-colored O, or. But for almost always reduces to fur. It can come out as for, that's fine. But normally, it will be pronounced fur as long as it's not at the end of a sentence. That's a special case. Part of the reason why we can reduce here is because of the rhythm. Waiting for. So we hear waiting for. Depends on how you say the sentence, but you can reduce to ya like normal. It doesn't have to. We're waiting for you. Even if you say for and you without reducing them, we still don't want them to be louder and longer. They still need to be shorter and quieter. We're waiting for you. And that's an important key here. Even if you don't use the reduced form, these still cannot be stressed unless you have a special reason to manipulate the stress and rhythm of the sentence to emphasize a particular point or something like that. Again, we're going to talk more about that in future lessons. After you, we have to. Now this to, of course, it's going to reduce to ta most likely. Doesn't have to, but very, very likely. And then also in this case, you'll notice I'm saying yuta. I'm flapping that D. I'm turning the T into a flap D. We're not going to worry about why here, but that is a possibility. Yuta or yuta. Same thing, okay? Point is that ta, or to if you say to, is super quiet, super short, compared to the stressed syllables. So we're seeing a lot of unstressed syllables in a row. We're waiting for you to, in for you to. And those need to be like rapid fire. In for you to. We're waiting for you to. And then leave. Leave is a verb, 1 syllable, stressed. We are going to fall at the end. Don't let the falling intonation at the end of a statement confuse you. Because if a syllable is stressed, it needs to start kind of dropping off the cliff at the very end of a normal statement, but we're still going to go up first. Leave. We're waiting for you to leave. We're waiting for you to leave. If I say that more slowly and more enunciated, again, we want to keep that relative length and loudness. We're waiting for you to leave. We're waiting for you to leave. Our next sentence, we have, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Here, I is not stressed, can is not stressed either, because it's a helping verb. It's a modal verb specifically, which is a type of helping verb. And can will very often either reduce to kin, with the second vowel like it, or to kun, with a schwa sound. Very, very unclear, small, true schwa sound. Okay, can, I can, or I can in the front, I. And it can even become more of like a syllabic end sound. Or you can just go straight from the K to the N. That can work too, it doesn't matter. It's going to be small, it's going to be quiet, okay? It's not going to be very long. I can. Even I, which is I, it's a diphthong I, you can sort of reduce that as well. I, instead of saying I can only. All right, now we pick it up. Da-da-da. I can only. And that first syllable of only is stressed. The second syllable is not. So only. We go right back down. Dun 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 dun. I can only. And then imagine. Imagine. So here we're stressed on the second syllable of 3 syllables. Imagine. So you can already hear that in the word, right? The 2 on the ends. Imagine. Imagine. We have that proportion. Now we're going to have O and only and imagine. Those are the things that need to be loud and long. The rest needs to be short and quiet. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Da-da-da-da-da-da. And our last example sentence. Before she goes, give her this. Before she goes, give her this. This is important because commas will affect the rhythm. And there's actually a secret here for the comma, which I'm going to get to in a second, that you probably weren't taught before. With before, the full pronunciation is B, okay, but it commonly reduces to B or B. It's fine, either way is fine. The point is, even if you say B, it still needs to be short and quiet, okay? It's not before, it's before, or before, or before. Either way, that 4 is going to stand out, okay? Remember, that's the key. Reduction or not, it needs to be short and quiet if it's not a stressed syllable. Now we have the word she. This is not stressed, it's just a pronoun. Before she. And then goes. That's a verb, it's going to be stressed, 1 syllable. Before she goes. So if we didn't have a comma there, like if I just say period, before she goes, when are you going to give it to her? Before she goes. It's very simple. When we have that comma, okay, and there's a couple different ways that you can do the intonation here. We're not going to worry about all those details, but before she goes, give her this. Before she goes, give her this. That is going to affect the end of go, because when we have a comma, we have a rising intonation that tells the listener that it's not the end of the statement, but that there's going to be more following. Now, the function of a comma is also to create a pause, which you were probably taught. And that is true. And if you are speaking very clearly and enunciated, or you are giving a speech or something like that, then definitely the comma will have a nice pause. Like, before she goes, give her this. But in the flow of actual fast speech, when we have a comma, we actually just rely more, usually, we rely more on the rhythm to tell us that the comma is there and to keep that flow. Okay, and you can keep the sound going without making a pause in the sound, but you have to keep relatively the same rhythm. Okay, so instead of saying, before she goes, give her this. Before she goes, give her this. Before she goes, give her this. So we want to keep that same intonation. Then we have, give her this. Give her this. So we have give, stands out, right? Give. And then her, if we keep the H, give her, give her. It's going to make it a little bit longer because we're taking the time to kind of push out that H sound. Usually the H will disappear here if there's some sort of connection, like the V can connect to the giver, giver. And that allows us to speak a little bit faster. This is one reason why it's important to drop certain sounds or to make certain blinking things, blending, whatever happens. But of course, the full pronunciation is always possible. It depends on how you're speaking, why you're saying what you're saying, so many details. We're gonna just say giver, very simple. Give her this. Now this is also stressed, but we're gonna drop at the end, okay? Give her this, give her this. 4, goes, give this. Before she goes, give her this. Dun 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 dun, dun dun dun. If you find that nice balance, you're going to sound a lot more natural. English is going to flow out of your mouth a lot faster, a lot more easily, okay? But you have to practice these pieces. So a big piece of advice for you, go out and observe, right? Whenever you're listening to English, spend some time not focusing on the words, but just focusing on the rhythm. What are you hearing? Okay, what's actually happening in the flow of the rhythm? Not even necessarily the sounds, but of course that's part of it. And then of course you can do some shadowing work where you're trying to mimic the rhythm, even if it's just, you know, da 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 da, or right? We talked about babbling earlier in the course. Play with it, okay? You have to play with these things if you want to master them. So thank you guys very much for watching another English Hacks lesson, and I'll see you in the next one.